Mothers can never forget. You know, the Bible is full of stories about the triumph of mother's love in all kinds of circumstances and challenges. And history is awash with accounts of mothers who have shaped the course of nations and the course of history by the power and persistence of their love. So today we want to honor our mothers and the call to motherhood. I want to read in Isaiah. It says, "Sing, O heavens, be joyful, O earth, and break out in singing, O mountains. For the Lord has comforted his people and will have mercy on his afflicted." But Zion said, "The Lord hath forsaken me, and the Lord has forgotten me." And God responds, "Can a woman forget her nursing child and not have compassion on the son or the child of her womb? Surely they may forget, yet I will not forget. See, I have inscribed you on the palm of my hands. Your walls are continually before me." God, help us this morning to hear from you, to be strengthened together. Now, Israel was complaining in their circumstance that maybe God had forgotten them. And God said, you know, it'd be easier for a mother to forget her child than for me to forget you. And what I really want to draw out of that is that is something in the very created nature of who we are about a mother's love that's almost incomprehensible. It's hard to get your head around. And for us guys, as much as we love our children, we can never quite completely comprehend the heart of a mother. Now, God is saying to Israel, and you know, in a world of brokenness and sin, there are mothers who don't live up to that idea. But generally speaking, a mother's love is the most powerful thing on the planet. With, you know, those odd exceptions. But God said, my love for you is greater even than a mother's love for her child. And he said, Israel is complaining, well, God has forgotten me. He said, can a mother forget her little baby? No. He said, you're inscribed in the palms of my hand. You know, there is various opinions about what that verse really means. But I think about it like this. In that day and age, actually down through history, people were often considered to be the property of others. They were slaves. It was not uncommon to put the owner's name on the slave or his mark. But God reverses this. And he puts your name and my name in his palm. So that we're always on his mind and in his heart. And he sees our circumstance. And he does never forget us, even when we feel forgotten. You know, in Proverbs 17:25, a foolish son is a grief to his father, and bitterness to her that bare him. The Passion Translation puts it like this: a father grieves over the foolishness of his child, and bitter sorrow fills his mother. The Complete Jewish Bible says a son who is a fool means anger for his father and bitterness for the mother who gave him birth. I want to look at that a little bit. You know, that says a foolish child is grief to his father and bitterness to his mother. The Hebrew word translated grief there appears in the Hebrew text 25 times. And depending on which translation you use, and I'll just use the King James, 10 times that word is translated grief, and 15 times it's translated either anger, wrath, indignation, or provocation. So that word carries both the sense of grief and the sense of frustration and anger. It conveys a sense of grief mingled with frustration and anger. And for a man, sometimes that's kind of the response, and even for the mother too. But there's something different. The frustration for the father is one thing, but the heart of a mother is something totally different. He says for the mother, it's bitterness. And see, when a child is in rebellion, and we're losing a child or feel like we are, that word bitterness, the Hebrew word translated there, is only used once in the whole Bible. And here it conveys a sense of sorrow, sadness, and travail. It's like the trauma of childbirth relived. The heart of a mother has a depth that us guys can't quite. I understand it to a point. I think I get it. But I also know that I'll never completely know what a mother feels for her child. As much as I love them, I can't match the heartache of a mother. The depth of passion a mother has for her children. Because it's like living through childbirth. I don't know what it's like to carry that child as a part of me for 9 months. To have that connection. To have that experience. I don't know it. But God said, my love for you is just like the mother's love for her baby. A love that transcends all circumstances and situations. You know, oftentimes over my lifetime, I've seen a lot of families in crisis, seen my own family in crisis. And then being involved in ministry at some level for 50 years, I've seen so many families in crisis of every stripe and color you want to think of. And often the advice is, well, I would just cut them off. I would just do this. I would just do that. But a mother's love can never be contained. You know, sometimes even the advice given may make practical sense. It could even be the word of wisdom and the right thing to do, but you can't stop a mother. They'll keep on reaching. I think about, and there's so many examples of mother's love throughout Scripture, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through the dozens that are there. But there's one that I think that I'd like to share this morning. As Christ was crucified, now there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. And when Jesus therefore saw his mother and the disciples whom he loved, that is John, standing by, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." And behold, he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her mother to his own home. So Jesus was arrested in the garden. The scripture says, then all the disciples forsook him and fled. The scripture records that Peter followed from a distance, and the women disciples, and there were quite a few women that followed Jesus. It says, and the women watched from afar. But his mother and her 3 companions, along with John, stood at the cross. A mother's love will go with you when everyone else abandons you and gives up. A mother's love will drive her to the place that nobody else in that crowd was willing to go. A mother's love, when all of Jesus' followers were not able to step up, she refused to step away. She followed him all the way to the cross. And I can only imagine a mother's love seeing her son on that cross. In fact, I can't imagine. So the mother's love will pursue you to places that nobody else will go, that nobody else might even be able to go. A mother's love will never give up. Mothers have a tremendous impact. The praying mother, I should say, can change the world. Second Timothy 1:5 is Paul, the apostle, was writing from prison to Timothy. And he said, "Oh, I wish I could see you, that my joy might be full, and I could encourage you, because I know you're heartbroken, Timothy, seeing me here on death row." He said, "My heart is full when I call to remembrance the genuine faith that is in you, which dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I am fully persuaded also in you." History is full of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of testimonies whose mothers' prayers persisted through every dark night, through every tragedy, through every heartache. Mothers' prayers never let go. And if we look at all of the great names of the Christian movement down through the years, almost every one of those had a praying mama. Just a couple quick examples. John Wesley, a great mover and shaker in the advancement of the gospel. He became who he was largely on the power of his mother's prayers. Hudson Taylor, who spent his life in China devoted to bringing the gospel to the nation of China, became that great evangelist to China because of his mother's prayers. Think about Billy Graham. It was his mother's prayers that catapulted him into his evangelic ministry. D.L. Moody, a very famous evangelist and preacher of the 1800s, the founder of the Moody Institute. His father died when he was 4 years old. And in those late 1800s, single moms didn't have a lot of resources. But that single mom stayed on her knees. And D.L. Moody turned out to be one of the great names in the advancement of the gospel. And the Moody Institute is still alive and well and functioning. I think about me. How much grief and heartache I brought to my parents. I rarely ever say much about my past. I don't preach about me, I preach the gospel. But on this Mother's Day, I could say without my mama's prayers, I wouldn't be here. Without my mama's prayers, I'd probably be dead. I remember I was still living at home. I can't remember how old I was, in my late teens, and I was My mama went to her grave at 91 years old, not knowing a tenth of all the things I did. And I'm not going to tell you either. But I'll tell you one thing. One experience I'll remember so vividly. I came in, it must have been around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. All the lights were out in the house and I didn't turn any on. I didn't want to disturb anybody. And as I headed to my room, I tripped over my mama. She was praying for me. And I remember that so vividly that I think, Mama, I feel sorry for you, Mama. You wasted all of that time and energy praying for me because I'm a lost cause. It ain't going to do you no good. I thought that very distinctly, clearly. I'm thinking, poor Mama. I feel bad for her. She thinks that praying is going to change it. It ain't. I'm too far gone. I'm too set. I'm too in too deep. I felt sorry for my mama. You know, you can't hide from the prayers of a praying mama. They will pursue you. It took years from then till I came to the Lord. But those prayers never stopped, never quit. My praying mama never gave up. She prayed and she prayed. And there's no telling how many times that those prayers literally saved my life. I'll tell you another story, and then I'll quit telling my own stories. Maybe. My dad brought a brand new Chevy Impala 327. I just got my driver's license, and he relented and let me take his car to go on a date. And I was supposed to be home by midnight, and I was running late. So coming out the old Arcata Road at over 100 miles an hour, barely knew how to drive. I just got my driver's license. I came up over a rise in an S-turn, and I was well over 100. And I'm not kidding. There are very few people on the planet have heard this story, so I'm not going to tell it often. But as I came around that S-turn, a supernatural power took my foot and drove the gas pedal to the floor. I didn't do it. It was supernatural. And it was the only way I could have survived that S-turn was to power out of it. I didn't know anything about driving. If I had hit the brakes, it would have been over. But the only way to come out of that was to power out of it. And a supernatural force took my foot and drove it to the floor. I came around that turn in the wrong lane. If there had been another car, it would have been ahead of over 100 miles an hour. But God kept me. The next day, my mama said, "What happened last night?" He said, "I had this overwhelming need to pray, something urgent. Something happened. What was it?" Of course, I was not going to own that. But it made an impression on me. My mama knew to pray. It is by the grace of God that he's bailed me out of that. And that's just one time in my life that the prayers of my mama kept me. But think about all those years of grief that I put her through. And she never gave up. She never quit praying. She never quit believing. And God finally got through to me. Mama's love will take you places that nobody else can go. Daddy can't even get there. But a mama's love will never give up. Never quit praying. And I am fully persuaded the prayers of a praying mama, it may take a while, It may take some grief, but God will hear those prayers. And we will pray. And we will pray. And we will pray till we see God move. Psalms 131, a song of ascents of David. Lord, my heart is not haughty, nor my eyes lofty. Neither do I concern myself with great matters, nor with things too profound for me. Surely I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with his mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, hope in the Lord from this time forth and forever. I'm going to read that in another translation. A Song of the Stairway. That's the entrance to the temple. By King David. Lord, my heart is meek before you. I don't consider myself better than others. I'm content not to pursue matters that are over my head, such as your complex mysteries and wonders that I'm not yet ready to understand. God, I'm willing to accept that I'm not going to figure this all out. I'm willing to accept that I'm not better than anyone else. But I know that I can rest in you. I know there's things that I will never figure out in this lifetime. I'm humbled and quieted in your presence like a contented child who rests on his mother's lap. I'm your resting child, and my soul is content in you. O people of God, your time has come to quietly trust, waiting upon the Lord now and forever. We can rest in the Father's love, in God's love for us like a child in the arms of its mother. We can know that God hears and sees our heart. You know, this last verse 3 of that psalm. Your time has come to quietly trust, waiting upon the Lord now and forever. God's love for us is more sure than the love of a mother for her child. We can rest in him. Jeremiah 31:3. The Lord has appeared of old to me, saying, yes, I've loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness, I've drawn you. Casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. God said, as powerful as a mother's love is, it can't measure up to the love I have for my children. And we can rest in him. Yes, we can trust in him. And yes, we can believe that he can do miracles. And if it takes 6 months, 6 years, or my lifetime, I am never going to quit praying. A mother will never quit praying for her child. And even if she goes to the grave, those prayers will pursue that child. God is faithful. Mothers can never forget.